Hello, I'm Rebecca Ang. I'm an associate professor with the Psychological Studies Academic Group, National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. I'm a school psychologist by training, and I'm interested in child-adolescent aggression, antisocial behavior, and prevention and intervention work, in particular, social problem-solving skills training. For today's topic, we will be considering the problem of child-adolescent aggression and the need to move towards a multi-pronged, multi-component approach towards prevention and intervention. Here's an outline of today's talk. My talk will be divided into 3 segments. The first segment will look at an understanding of child-adolescent aggression, in particular the kinds of faulty thinking and behavioral patterns that they manifest. In the second segment, I will be looking at multiple interacting risk factors impacting children and adolescents, and the long-term consequences of aggressive behavior if it goes unattended and unchecked. In the last segment, I will be talking about preventive interventions. Let's begin with the first segment, where we consider the problem of child-adolescent aggression and their faulty thinking and behavioral patterns. Kenneth Dodge, a very prominent psychologist, has talked about this extensively in his social information processing model. Today, I will not be going to the details of this entire model, but I will be summarizing for us the problems at 3 different phases. And these 3 different phases are as follows. These children that struggle with anger, aggression issues have problems taking in information, and that's at the encoding stage. They have problems processing information, interpreting that information, and they have problems with output, response generation. So in summary, they have problems with 3 different phases of social information processing. Let's take a scenario. In everyday life, we all walk around and we are inundated and bombarded with millions and millions of cues. And these cues can be positive, they can be negative, some are neutral, and others are ambiguous. But these children that struggle with anger and aggression issues and problems might just zoom in on a particular cue. It could be a neutral cue, it could be an ambiguous cue. And they jump very quickly to conclusions, and they decide that the other person might have an hostile intent towards them, and that's how fights begin. And that's what experts call hostile attribution intent, or hostile attributional bias. In contrast, typically developing children who do not suffer from deficits such as perspective taking, deficits where they struggle with anger and aggression, they develop what's known as a benign attributional style, as opposed to a hostile attributional style. So these individuals struggle with problems of taking in information, encoding, processing it, but they also struggle with output, information output. There is abundance of research in the literature that informs us that for response generation, children who struggle with aggression and aggression issues tend to generate solutions that are not only less effective, but more aggressive than their non-aggressive counterparts. They also suffer from other kinds of deficits, such as perspective taking. They have a tendency to minimize their own aggression level and minimize the impact their aggression has on other people. So in summary, they suffer from different kinds of deficits at the encoding, at the processing, and at the output stages. So that concludes the first segment. With that understanding in mind, let's move into the second segment and analyzing risk factors for delinquency and antisocial behavior. Children and adolescents, we need to understand, are necessarily embedded in multiple systems, and we know that from various theories. Urie Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory of development, for example. And for the purposes of today's talk, we do not have time to go into all the details of the theory. But suffice it to say that there are multiple systems and multiple contexts that children are embedded in. For example, they are embedded in the system of family. They are embedded in the system of school, neighborhood, and the community. And within these systems that they are embedded in, there are risk factors. And these risk factors could be within child risk factors. These factors could be residing within various systems, be it the peer system, the school system, the family system, the community system, and so on. But I think it's very important for us to recognize that these risk factors do not operate in isolation. They interact in a very dynamic way and in a reciprocal manner to impact the child. So these risk factors are not in and of themselves within any one particular context, but rather they interact across multiple contexts and impact the child and adolescent in multiple ways. At this point, I'm sure some of us may be wondering, does it mean that when we have a child with severe anger and aggression, he or she will definitely become an aggressive adult in the future? That may or may not be the case. But let's examine the evidence. I would like to bring about two concepts here for us to consider, and these are the concepts of equifinality and multifinality. Shiketi and Rogesh talked about both of these constructs and applied them specifically to the context of aggression. When we consider the idea of equifinality, that really is a notion that talks about the fact that there can be multiple initial starting points. There could be multiple causes or contributing factors leading to one singular similar outcome. In the concept of multifinality, it is the idea that one single contributing cause or factor could result in a variety of different outcomes. Despite variation in children with a wide range of developmental psychopathology, there is overwhelming evidence, research evidence, that suggests that aggressive behavior, if we do not spot them early, if we do not detect, and if we do not intervene, could spiral easily downwards, down a downward trajectory leading to serious consequences such as antisocial behavior, delinquency, bullying, cyberbullying, criminal behavior, and other negative outcomes. Does that mean that all aggressive children might lead along this pathway? No, not necessarily so. But that said, I think it is important for us to find ways and means towards effective preventive and intervention approaches. There is again lots of research evidence out there to suggest that in considering prevention and intervention approaches, we must and ought to consider multi-pronged, multi-component approaches towards prevention and intervention. That leads us nicely into our third segment, which is preventive interventions. A multi-pronged approach is increasingly advocated, and by this we mean targeting multiple components, multiple individuals, and multiple settings. There are several key therapeutic components that have been identified in the research literature that are particularly helpful for children and adolescents struggling with anger and aggression. And they are as follows. Some form of social problem-solving skills training, including the need to modify beliefs supportive of aggression. Second, supplemental parent training, where we help parents develop positive parenting skills. Third, helping children and adolescents stay meaningfully connected to school and school activities. Fourth and last, developing and enhancing strong, positive teacher-student relationships. I've made mention of 4 therapeutic components that have been identified in the literature for prevention and intervention work. For the purposes of today's talk, I will keep a primary focus on social problem-solving skills training. In the course of my research over the years, I have developed an anger management, social problem-solving skills program and curriculum with the main purpose of helping children and adolescents who struggle with anger issues, aggression issues, and other behavioral problems. The development and refinement of this program was done in partnership with Child Guidance Clinic, Institute of Mental Health, Singapore. There are also two other individuals who have been instrumental in this partnership and collaboration, and they are my former PhD student, Dr. Yoon Pek Uy and Miss Nikki Lim Ashworth. In considering this particular program for developing children's social problem-solving skills, there are a range of skills that we teach children and adolescents. Some of these skills are as follows. We help children and adolescents identify feelings in themselves and in other people. We help them regulate emotions, learn self-control, emotional regulation, empathy, perspective taking, a range of anger coping methods, as well as steps for effective problem solving. We also teach and help children learn pro-social behavioral skills. There are also ample opportunities through this program for children and adolescents to practice and role-play such skills that they have learned and picked up through a variety of vignettes, case studies, and discussions of real-life scenarios and real-life problems. I work very closely with REACH, and REACH is a community mental health service arm of Institute of Mental Health, Singapore. And REACH as a platform works very closely with school counselors, school personnel, non-profit voluntary welfare organizations, as well as primary healthcare physicians all over Singapore. And the primary purpose is to help strengthen social, emotional, and behavioral adjustment of school-going children. With this effort in mind, the twin purpose we hope to achieve is not only to help reduce some of these anger issues, aggression problems that children face, but we also want to try and raise and improve the positive skills, social development skills that these children have. Even though this particular social problem-solving skills package and curriculum is developed in Singapore and specially tailored for use with our Singapore school-going children and adolescents, it is important for us to remember that the therapeutic components within this program are universal. Similar therapeutic components can be found in other similar kinds of programs in North America, Europe, and elsewhere. It is also very important for us to remember that this particular package and this particular curriculum is not used in isolation. Institute of Mental Health, through the REACH platform, uses this particular program in conjunction with a variety of other therapeutic components, such as supplemental parent training, where parents are helped to understand positive parenting skills so that they can walk alongside and support their children who are undergoing social skills training. Other therapeutic components that are being incorporated into this particular platform will include working very closely with school personnel, such as school counselors and teachers and other educators, to help children and adolescents stay meaningfully connected in school and with school-related activities. We also work very closely with teachers to build and enhance high-quality, positive, and supportive teacher-student relationships. As a summary and conclusion, we have looked at all three components and segments in this talk. And I would like to conclude by emphasizing again that childhood, adolescent, and aggression can have serious consequences if left unattended, unchecked, and unintervened. It is important for us to put in collective effort towards multi-pronged, multi-component approaches when we are considering prevention and intervention. We need to work with not just the children themselves, but their parents, their peers, teachers, and the larger community. Thank you for watching. I'm Rebecca Ang, National Institute of Education.